Ba 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 ba. Almost Wrath of Khan.
Well, that's pretty good.
Seed.
Yes.
Thank you.
Welcome, everyone, once again to another episode of Yelling at Gaseous Anomalies. And hello to all of our new viewers. And once again, I'm your host, Captain Matthew Ross, and I'm accompanied by my XO, Michael Pontone. How are we doing, Mike?
Number one to my Captain Matt Ross. Doing pretty well. Man, oh man, good episode. I got so many questions. This is the one. I've never seen it. I'd only heard tell of it. We are on Space Seed,
Wow.
where we see Khan Noonien Sung.
Well, actually, just Khan. But, you know, I can't believe you haven't seen this
Khan!
before. That's right. I'm going to leave you as you left me, as you left her, buried alive in the center of a dead planet. There you go.
We can't make this be a Wrath of Khan review.
Well-
but I do have to ask. I guess he didn't realize that Carol Marcus had made that amazing dugout, right?
Yeah, well, you know, I got to tell you, Carol Marcus, there's a whole bunch of fan theories about who Carol Marcus is. Some theorize that was Ruth from your favorite episode, you know, Shore Leave. You'll see several other blondes that are throughout Star Trek where Captain Kirk seems to have a relationship with, but none of them are Carol Marcus. However, there's a really big hint of who Carol Marcus is, and it was from the very first official televised episode that was shown out of order, where no man has gone before. Do you remember what that was?
No.
Gary Mitchell had pushed a blonde in the direction of Lieutenant Kirk.
If I hadn't aimed that little blonde lab technician at you.
You what? You planned that?
Well, you wanted me to think, didn't you? I outlined our whole campaign for her.
I almost married her.
And he said, "I almost married her." That's who
Oh.
that's who they think we're talking about. But anyway,
Yeah.
that's not what we're
Here's
here
the
for.
thing.
Yeah, go on.
You're right. The screenwriter of Wrath of Khan did not have attention to detail of the original series to realize that Chekhov was not on the show at the time,
Well,
and yet Khan recognized him. We'll get into that.
Yeah.
But the point is, no way did he look at some random moment from some early episode and be like, "That'll be her."
nah, no,
It's
I'm
just
sure
some
he
girlfriend.
did. Yeah, no, he didn't do that. You're talking about Nicholas Meyer, but he did watch all the Star Treks to come up with Wrath of Khan. But that's neither here nor there for tonight.
Yeah. Oh God, I got so many questions.
We are here on the January 26th, 1967 episode of Star Trek called Space Seed. I'm going to read you the NBC summary, or actually press release, if you don't mind.
Yes, please.
It's Ricardo Montalban with rich Corinthian leather. Sorry, that's a Cordoba ad from the 70s. Guest stars as the survivor of a tyrannical super race in Space Seed, a drama in which Captain Kirk, William Shatner, and his crew are unwitting accomplices to attempt to seize world power on NBC television network's colorcast of Star Trek. I didn't know about world power. I think galactic power. But that's a fair assessment of what this episode is. We start off. Yeah.
I would add. Can I add?
Yeah, go ahead.
All the amazing professionalism of Starfleet, astronauts of the future, capable of multidisciplinaries. You know, they have no fear. They are the peak performance of the human race. All comes crumbling down once a lady sees a good-looking man.
Well, you could kind of say that. There's a whole bunch of scenes that are missing. You're talking about Lieutenant MacGyver's. But let's start off from the very beginning. You have actually some witty banter. But before we even get to that, this was written by a guy named Cary Wilbur, who Roddenberry liked, but the press could not stand. They all thought his work was less than well done. And in fact, they had to rewrite this about 7-8 times to get it up to speed. In fact, the actual writer of this is more Gene L. Kuhn, and polishing off by Gene Roddenberry, believe it or not, because that script was so basic and everyone had a problem with it. Robert Justman famously had like 10-page memos, and he said, "This is too childish and too much like Flash Gordon," and he signed his memo, Ming the Merciless. I mean, he was really, really harsh on this, but this...
Wait, why? What was the point of the... I thought it was actually a very tightly done episode.
Yeah, but that's...
It actually... Go on.
No, that's not the original writer who wrote it. The original writers, if you'll take a look at who got credited, Gene Coon got credit and Carrie Wilbur, but it was really Gene Coon who pushed it through, and also Gene Roddenberry, who was uncredited, which was a WGA dispute later.
Here's the thing. Coming off of, Return of the Archons, which it's so obviously 10 different screenplays put into a blender and shat out onto screen, this seemed very coherent. It didn't seem like there were many rewrites.
Well, there actually were, but basically what Carrie Wilbur did is took some of his prior work and reworked it in several things. He had used similar themes of people stuck in cryosleep. In fact, he wrote it for something called Captain Video, which was an earlier TV show, again, a Flash Gordon-y show. Then he also put it in Lost in Space. He had it where, he had criminals in Lost in Space. Then he had families lost in space. And I don't mean the TV show. I mean, like Frozen in Time. But what they were having problems are with Robert Justman and also Gene Roddenberry had a problem. Is it doesn't make sense to have criminals shot into space in an advanced spaceship, which is even mentioned later by these characters, not as a dig, but to flesh out the story. So they had a lot of problems with the general idea. It wasn't fleshed out enough, and they had to keep rewriting it until it actually made sense. Kirk originally had nothing to do. They were saying the characters didn't fit, and also they came up with a different name. It wasn't named Khan. His name wasn't Khan, not Khan Singh, just Khan. His name was like John Erickson. In fact, he was supposed to be a Nordic Superman, but that was felt to have been too Nazi-ish. Roddenberry's the one who came up with the Indian or the Sikh, which I thought was interesting. That you
couple of different
yes
things. Hold on. In the very dubious Star Trek Into Darkness, he's called John Harrison.
Yes.
You think that's a reference?
Yes. No, that's exactly what it is. Well, you're talking about the second of the J.J. Star Trek stories, Into Darkness, which is supposed to be the Wrath of Khan and Space Seed kind of combined, but it makes absolutely no sense. When we eventually get to those, we can rip them apart. I'm not a big fan of the JJ stuff, or actually any of New Trek's, except for maybe Star Trek Prodigy, but that's a different story. But this over here, it had a lot of rewrites. This was supposed to be about eugenics, and eventually this actually leads to what we know, and it actually gives us information about what's going on. But we're jumping way ahead. We first start off with the Enterprise is picking up a signal in the distance, and they pick up Morse code, and that's where we see Gene Coon's writing of the banter where Kirk corrects Spock, where he goes, "I thought you said human ships couldn't go out this far," and Spock is pretty much like saying, "Why do you always do that to me?" But
I thought you said it couldn't possibly be an Earth vessel.
I understand why it always gives you pleasure to see me proven wrong.
An emotional Earth weakness of mine.
That just shows a banter between the people, and that's where we see the kind of the flying submarine spaceship. What were you thinking about that entire little bit up to the reveal out there?
I thought it was really good, actually.
Yeah.
I mean, I liked the reveal. I liked that it was, what do they call it? And it would be like a generational spaceship.
Well, it's a DY-100. Yes, but it's actually a freighter. That's actually pretty cool.
I thought that it looked really good. I thought that it looked like, again, smart production design. What's something that's completely different, but not alien? That looks like something that humans could have made,
right,
200 years before the Enterprise. Now, Captain.
Yes.
You, of course, have much more experience with the expanded universe than I have. Did they ever try to retcon why the eugenics wars took place in the 90s? Like, that it was like a secret war, like a Cold War, that maybe it's going on right now and we don't know about it?
Well, there's two versions of it. I mean, there's a lot of, as you would call, apocrypha, and you can go to Memory Beta, which is the beta canons of Star Trek online. Memory Beta versus Memory Alpha, which is the official version. And timelines in Star Trek are always generally a little bit squishy, but the canon, you want to have some sort of general theme. There is several versions. There's an IDW version that talks about the eugenics war and how the Supermen were defeated. in the IDW comic version, if I'm not mistaken, United forces flowing through China because there were a lot of soldiers overthrew the Supermen as they fled in that generational or the Botany Bay. In another book, it was a plot by characters from Assignment Earth who you haven't seen yet. Gary Seven and Roberta Mitchell were going through time at the same time that was talking about the eugenics war itself. And you know what? Oddly, I can't remember the name of the book, but I see it sitting across from me right now on my bookshelf. I'll have to go get it while you banter and find it. But those two stories are pretty much what they got eugenics from, the eugenics wars from.
The mid-1990s was the era of your last so-called World War. The eugenics war is, of course, your attempt to improve the race through selective breeding.
Oh, now, wait a minute. Not our attempt, Mr. Spock. A group of ambitious scientists. I'm sure you know the type. Voted to logic. Completely unemotional. I would be pleased. All right, gentlemen, as you were.
It's kind of on top of World War III. It's never clear which happened first, World War III or the eugenics war. I like to think that the eugenics war happened and everything was so disabled that World War III happened. And I'm going to raise this. I'm going to raise this again. No one realizes that Star Trek is post-apocalyptic. It's not immediately. Yes. It's, or you could say it's post-apocalyptic. You know, you've had you could even see it in Next Gen's first episode, Encounter at Farpoint, where the remnants of humanity are basically feeding on themselves in a flashback scene. But this is the first time we actually hear about it, but that's later. So we get to that point, in fact, where they find the spaceship. They go like, oh, look at that. It's obviously a human ship. Let's go check it out. McCoy notices that the heartbeats are really low and that there's weird technology over there, but it seems ancient. And then they beam on over. And that's where you take over Kirk, McCoy, Scotty, and as Kirk points out, what's that woman's name? Let that historian finally do something. What's her name? Lieutenant McGivers?
No.
I just
McGinnis.
like
McIvers.
That's right, but I like the way Spock just as Kirk leaves the bridge, because he's obviously like annoyed that he has this person on there, goes, Lieutenant Marla McGivers. You know, it's just...
Yeah, man, he really threw a lot of shade at her from right out the outset, man.
Well, you know, you have to think about, what is it that she does? What does the ship's historian do in Star Trek? You tell me what you think.
I don't know, man. I mean, whatever. Be a scribe. Aren't they living in a post-communist hippie dippy waste, wonderland anyway? No one has to work for a living.
Well, that's true.
They don't have to be useful.
Well, everyone loves to be useful. Yeah, I'm sorry, I stepped away because I thought I saw the book, but I couldn't find it. So I'm gonna have to Google it. But but she is useless. But one of the things that they cut at that point was what they had cut out was, she can't find a man to satisfy her of her time, and the scene is one of her friends says, hey, this guy wants to ask you out, and she goes, I only go out with people who are brave enough to ask me out directly. I mean, I would assume most women would agree to that too, but there's some sort of implication that that there is she's looking for something that she can find in the 23rd century, some sort of man or something like that. And so that's when she beams on over. They first see this like ship. I actually like the design of the ship, by the way, when they land on this like open deck with all those sleeper pods in there. But she's like,
yeah, not bad.
She's like smitten for it. I like that Scotty says, "Oh, what are those things called? Solid state transistors." Well, we're a little bit beyond that in the 21st century. But that's actually pretty, I always thought that was pretty cool. If they're walking through the sleeper ships, and we find Scotty saying, yep, we got some of them Asiatics, we got some Europeans and other people. We come to see Khan, or whom we don't know was Khan, this guy in a see-through jumpsuit. What did you think of that thing that he was wrapped in?
I thought it was pretty sweet. I liked his look. Again, I got questions as to the whole history of this. I'm less concerned with the plot of this episode than I am the greater implications about all of Trek.
Oh,
because I mean, little old 20th episode Space Seed becomes the linchpin for the defining trilogy of the original series, which sets the tone of the no-win scenario, which you see echoed throughout all of Trek. It's so, primal of the storytelling of Trek, and we're just starting off. And so you start with Khan. You see Khan. First of all, Ricardo Montalban, obviously, what is his nationality?
He's
is
Mexican.
He Cuban?
He's Mexican, actually. He was a dancer, singer. He was a triple threat in Hollywood. If you want to check him out,
an amazing. Matt and I are as straight as the day is long, except for that one time in Tijuana with each other.
Oh my God!
But the point
that
is
wasn't
that
me. That was someone else.
It was a guy named Matt. Point is, Ricardo Montalban. My goodness, he looked like he was on. He's like a bodybuilder, like a 2024 bodybuilder. The guy's got some serious muscles on him.
That's called dancer.
Right, that's true. Now, the thing, too, he is 5 shades darker in this episode than he is in Wrath of Khan 15 years later. So, was he wearing blackface?
No, he was not.
Or brownface?
Nope. He was he's just tanner.
Just tan?
Just it.
Okay.
But Ricardo Montalban, one of his films, if every one of our listeners want to listen to, if you just look it up on YouTube or anywhere, look up Latin Lovers, you get to see him in his prime. He was in many things, including other TV shows. I'm sure you know Fantasy Island. But this episode cemented him into Star Trek lore, especially more so in Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan, which Mike and I referenced at the beginning. It was always muscular. There was always a story about, was that his real chest in Star Trek 2? And the answer is yes. He's still jacked even then. But that's, I guess, fits the character. By the way, the name of the book is called The Eugenics War. Duh, right?
Right? Yeah.
And it's, you can find that on Amazon or any place, wherever fine paperbacks and hardcovers are sold. It's by a gentleman named Greg Cox. It's a set of series of stories that ties several Star Trek stories together. But the Eugenics Wars, basically humanity goes through a time period where scientists breed superior humans. And as Spock points out, superior ability breeds superior ambition. And that created a race of people that others basically kowtow to. And Khan happens to be one of them. These are the ones who escaped, and Spock can't even find out who they are. One of the lines I actually like over here is like Kirk is trying to figure out, you have any information, and you think it's dangerous, and Spock pretty much basically says lack of information is dangerous. That's quite true.
That's a great line.
You suspect some danger in them.
Insufficient facts always invites danger, Captain.
It's very disturbing that you really don't know too much. It's very tightly shot at this point. They get back to the ship, and they put Khan in sick bay, and he immediately heals, which is also pretty wild.
Yeah.
And they still don't know who he is.
Yeah, it was pretty sweet.
But I do like Kirk dressing down MacGyver's. Do you think you did well on this away mission? Because you're
now again, I go on.
Staring at him drooling. You need to relax.
I know.
It's crazy.
Well, Roddenberry was always doing that, where women were, giving into their lustful angst, and men were keeping it together.
Yeah, nothing wrong
they were
with
talking
that.
about that in TNG. Again, I always get it confused. What is the TNG episode?
The naked
where they
now.
all get, the naked now,
as opposed to the naked time versus naked now. Oh, Captain, I'm
so
a
in
woman.
Naked Now, right? Exactly. They're all losing it. Denise Crosby, Gates McFadden. Mariana Sirtis, they're all they're going head over heels, and all the men are keeping it together. So obviously Gene Roddenberry believes in women being lustful and uncontrollable.
Yeah.
Now hold on, I got questions.
Go ahead.
So, first of all, questions. I can think of one other instance in fiction before this where there was the concept of suspended animation. Help me out here. Planet of the Apes, before or after this?
Planet of the Apes is That's a good question.
Let me
I think
look
it's
it up.
before this, but that was like kind of a time warp thing. I mean, there's also suspended animation.
No. They were in suspended animation, and there was suspended animation twice in the Twilight Zone.
Yes, there is. It's a common theme. Like I said, it came from Captain Video and other shows, so it's not like this is unique. But
shut my mouth. I didn't know.
yeah, that's what I was saying. That's where this guy Wilbur wrote all that. So it happened again and again, and that was one of the complaints that Robert Justman, the executive producer, was having, saying like, "This is so trite. We've done this before. We need to add things." By the way, Gene Roddenberry rewrote the entire script in one night. I wonder what he was drinking or not drinking to get through that. Sniffing, maybe?
Sure.
I don't know. But
Possibly.
so, I mean, they really had to do a lot of work. I mean, there were so many rewrites on this to come up with it. But by the way, you can also take a look at another thing as Ruling in Hell, which is actually directly after this by IDW. There's so much apocrypha and stuff about this character because he is one of the most, if not the most interesting villains in all of Star Trek. He's very personable.
Again, I got so many questions. Let me start at the top.
Sure,
First of all, Wrath of Khan, when he's torturing the little City Alpha 6 slug monster,
but
that he
it's
pulls
City
the
Alpha
mind control
5.
slugs out of. Right, sorry, City Alpha 5. This is City Alpha 5.
It is.
So he says, it took 5 of my people, including my wife. That was MacGyver's.
Yes, exactly.
So here's the thing, too. If you look at Wrath of Khan, he has, 12 people living with him still?
Yes.
Like, if you look, they're all very young. They're all substantially younger than him. They look like kids. It's heavily implied that those are the children of his people.
Well,
he's the only one left of the originals, right?
Well, that's your headcanon. It doesn't say one way or another. There were 72 survivors on the Botany Bay when the Enterprise found them, and they all went down. They were marooned on Ceti Alpha 5, not Ceti Alpha 6. And what you really need to do is read that Ruling in Hell comic book. I strongly recommend that to everyone. I'm going to post on our community page a link to another YouTuber who actually kind of videoed up the comic book page by page, though sometimes the music's a little bit annoying. Or I would suggest just buying it, which I did as well. It's actually really very good. It has like what happens afterwards. So that answers that question. One side note, and I know we're jumping all over the place here, but one of his followers, when he's reviving everyone and they're doing their calisthenic exercises, his name is Joaquim. The same Joaquim. Is the question? Is it the same guy from Star Trek II, Wrath of Khan? That's never answered. That's the guy who actually slabs Uhura. So it's the same. The character's named the same, so he could be a son. Or it could just be the same character. Star Trek
obviously that's
it.
his son. They don't acknowledge that is his son, the guy that says yours is the superior.
That's right. It's his number 2, but you don't know who he is. It could be because he also relies on Joaquim in this episode too. He does. He says this time we rule the universe. That's what that is. But I just want to go back to the ship. One of the things I found absolutely hilarious, it's one of my, I guess, early WTFs, is they can't figure out how to open the canister where Khan is sleeping, or his character, they don't know yet. So like, how are we going to get him out? And there's like this shrug of Shatner, and he just takes the edge of his phaser and smashes the glass. I found that just like ridiculous. Really? Just light glass?
Yeah.
That's kind of funny to me, but I get it. It's they have to move the story along. I also like going back to sickbay when they have Khan there, that he tries to threaten McCoy, and the line of showing how big a pair of balls does McCoy have? Either choke me or slit my throat.
Yeah, man. What a badass line. And I realize we've never really seen McCoy in kind of a stressful situation before. I'm like, man, that guy's badass.
Yeah.
He doesn't give a shit.
Well,
he's an old country boy.
Yeah, he really. But what's funny is that D. Kelly actually played a lot of bad guys too. So I'd like to think he channeled his black hat cowboy from the westerns he was in. I mean, he was like several of the bad guys in the OK Corral. You name it. I saw him once in one of these films from the Paramount era, and you're like, wow, what a dirtbag. That can't be Dr. McCoy, but yep. You just take a look around, look up D. Kelly's work, and you'll say, "Oh my God, what a piece of work that guy is." But let's talk about a little bit about. I want to talk about Lieutenant MacGyver's. I think she falls for Khan too fast. Not Anakin falling under the Emperor fast, but pretty fast. Although
he's a good-looking guy,
I do kind of like it. She's obsessed with men of power in the past. She finds him attractive from the get-go, and she wants to help him because she wants someone like this, someone who doesn't give a damn about anything and is very full of self-assured confidence. I like that.
I mean, the sheer delight of examining his mind.
And men were more adventuresome then, bolder, more colorful.
Yes, sir, I think they were.
What did you think, though, of Lieutenant MacGyver's, which is played by Madeline Rue? What did you think of her?
She was one note and one dimensional. That being said, the way that Montalban is playing the role, it's not unbelievable that a woman in the 23rd century, surrounded by a bunch of soft boys, would be like, holy smokes, look at this guy. He is not interested in the greater good or Starfleet protocol. He is a brilliant, muscly, swarthy Adonis. And and here's the interesting thing too, I'll say, just jumping around, again, because I'm excited from this episode. It was so good. It was funny, I realized, and I was like, ooh, to see Kirk and Khan in the same room, face to face.
Yes.
Because again, famously, Wrath of Khan, they only ever talk over view screens. It's a complete naval battle.
That's true.
Battle of wits.
That is true. But they also, you could tell from their first meeting, they don't like each other. They're portraying. I don't mean the actors. I mean the characters hate each other. Yeah. You could see it right away. I do like the thing where, like, can I read some technical manual so I can catch up?
I know, right?
Kirk says, sure, here you go. I was waiting for McCoy. Said, wait, where's your insurance? That's what I always hit.
That was a little quick, trusty, rusty Kirk there.
Yeah, didn't you learn from where no man has gone before? I mean, your friend Gary Mitchell read, everything in like 20 seconds, and you pretty much gave him everything there. I do like after McCoy says, yeah, he's all right. Just, Montalban says, I'm a little fatigued anytime they ask who he is. We still don't know what his name is. Except then he finally says, what's your name? Khan. That's it? Just Khan. There is no Khan.
Which is another. Mm-hmm. But they call him Khan Noonien Singh later on.
Yeah.
And again, if he's trying to hide his identity, why doesn't he call himself Joe or something?
Well, because he's arrogant. Remember that. He's
right.
arrogant and
That's
he's
true.
So far in the future. How does he know? They don't know who he is. They should know who he is. In fact, as we later find out, he was like ruler of a third of the planet Earth. I mean, you would think, come on.
Captain, come on. So many questions, though. Okay,
go
ahead.
All
right, let me do TNG, Noonien Sung, the creator of Data, was that just a coincidence? Or did the writers of TNG intend him to have some relationship?
Now, it was never really clear. The name just sounded familiar. I would say that they were attended to it. I'm sure when we get to it, I'll look and I'll find some little squib somewhere. But my understanding was it's just different names. It's Dr. Sung versus Khan Noonien Singh. I know. But there are differences. It's sing-songy. Ha-ha. But no, there's two different names. It's not.
But it's explicitly connected in Enterprise, right?
Sort of. They
with
have
the augment virus.
Yeah, that was one of the characters. Is Dr. Sung has an augment virus in Enterprise's last season. Not one of my favorite sets of episodes. And then he goes, I'm not going to go make any more genetic engineering. I'm just going to concentrate on robotics. I mean, how about just, on the nose, will you? It's a little bit ridiculous. But, yeah.
I know, but still.
Yeah, no, I got it. But in this episode, Spock realizes, hey, we figured out who they are. Earth was a wreck. You know, would you tell your tattered remains of humanity that the people that were just enslaving them escaped? I don't think you want to do that. Everyone would be insane. Like, what? You let those people go? You know, or you couldn't stop them. That was a good point. And then you find out how messed up Earth was. It was records were a wreck, governments were collapsing, and you had these people who were dominating the planet Earth. And I like that little scene where Kirk, McCoy, and Scotty going like, "Oh yeah, he was pretty cool being a dictator," and Spock's going, "What's wrong with you guys?" You know, and he's like, "Yeah, we were a little barbarous. What can we tell you?" But I like that bit.
Yeah, Vulcans by their very nature must lack in ambition, right? I mean, I'm sure that they have the interest in bettering themselves and doing humanitarian work, but I would never imagine them having what we would consider, or Earthlings would consider to be, ambition to achieve over someone else for the simple sake of being better than them.
Well, unless they're Andorians or Tellarites. That's an Enterprise. But they have evolved beyond those baser needs. Remember, they came from a violent history and race, wars against each other, and half of their species theoretically fled, as you recall, from Balance of Terror, and then later Star Trek.
Sure.
But, so, I think one of my favorite things in this is when we get to the dinner time, which is after that. First of all, Khan is dressed in this, shimmery, yellow, opened Nehru jacket, showing off his muscles. It's like, let me show you how
is that woman not going to fall for him?
You know,
come on.
I was like, where was that from? Was that in the? Oh wait, give him the jacket from the Dictator collection. Oh yes, it's right over here. It's so ridiculous. Yeah. I mean, Captain Christopher was in a captain's colored shirt. Khan's later wearing a red Enterprise jersey as opposed to that. That dinner scene, I think, is one of the most interesting dinner scenes in television. Actually, I've always enjoyed it, with Spock questioning him and everyone listening in. I love that entire bit. You know, points out that Kirk's a brilliant tactician, allowing his second in command rip him apart while Kirk looks for weakness. I thought that entire bit. What did you think of the dinner scene?
Tyranny, sir? Or an attempt to unify humanity?
Unify, sir, like a team of animals under one whip.
I know something of those years. Remember, it was a time of great dreams, of great aspiration.
Under dozens of petty dictatorships.
One man would have ruled eventually, as Rome under Caesar. Think of its accomplishments.
Then your sympathies were with...
You are an excellent tactician, Captain. You let your second-in-command attack while you sit and watch for weakness.
You have a tendency to express ideas in military terms. This is a social occasion.
It has been said that social occasions are only warfare concealed.
I thought it was great. Great writing, upper level. Again, focusing on a battle of wits, which we don't see too often in Star Trek. And again, I'm surprised that this was written by multiple people, because it seemed laser focused in its theming and its tension. I mean, it kind of all falls apart at the end, but other than that,
well, it does.
I really dig it.
Yeah, it really does. It really does have a lot of that tension in there. He's like, but I think it begins to fall apart the second he takes over the ship. Honestly, it's like, because how could you let this guy have free reign of the ship? Khan's able to go back over and wake up the rest of his crew and take over the Enterprise in like 8 seconds. I mean, the only time I've ever seen the Enterprise ever taken over that quickly is when the Ferengi take over the Enterprise D in Rascals in the last season of Enterprise, which TNG, which is terrible. But
I always hate that season, that episode. I'm just going to say this. The problem is that, not the problem, but like the reason why I dig that is because, again, we're dealing with Starfleet. They're good battle commanders, but they're also goody two-shoes and a little naive, and we are dealing with people who were not only physically advanced, not only mentally advanced, but were predators in the purest sense of the word, not sadists. I was talking to my wife about this. Khan was a good villain because like all good villains, you wouldn't necessarily have a horrible time if they were in charge, right?
That's true.
Well, Dr. Doom,
maybe.
Magneto,
You don't
Khan.
know that. Some could say that Mussolini made the trains run on time. So,
Right, but I mean, the whole point is like Khan is evolved past petty bigotry. You can't insult him. You're not going to be able to do a parody skit about him, but still.
Well, you don't know that. I mean, for all as Bach pointed out, is all animals under one whip. That's what he was looking to do, is basically control humanity. There were murders, and you could be killed by secret police, and there was no freedom of expression or thought. And you had to do whatever you want, whatever they said in their territory. So, that sounds like a fascist streak of you, Mike. What's up with that?
No, it's not fascism, and it's not fascism. It's just like
authoritarianism.
A little authoritarianism. It would, if you could find a benevolent authoritarian, which of course is nigh impossible, right? That's why it doesn't work. Absolute power corrupts absolutely.
Absolutely.
But still, anyway, we're moving on. So let's think about other stuff here. What else do we have? The final confrontation. I really dig, the physical confrontation between Kirk and Khan when he just peels apart the phaser.
That was cool.
And that being said, total cop out that I rewatched this a few times. I'm like, wait, how did Kirk just win that?
Oh, he took a pipe.
That was
the pipe out of the side of the ship that hasn't been there before. It was the plot element pipes that are not normally in that scene on the engineering deck. We should also point out that you can actually, if you look carefully, see the two stuntmen again fighting each other. This is.
Oh, yeah, very obvious this time around.
Right.
Ricardo and William were just not feeling it this week. They wanted to sit back and have a GT while they watched these guys go at it.
Now, they did all the close-up work. Mark Daniels is the director, one of the best directors of Star Trek. In fact, one of the lines are from, I think it was Gene Kuhn, is during a drought, you pray for rain. For the first year of Star Trek, we prayed for Mark Daniels. They loved him, even though he admitted he couldn't do fight scenes too well. It was actually his weakness, but he didn't. I think Mark Daniels just overall did a great job, but that fight scene's a little silly. And that's after, this is after the betrayal of MacGyver's. MacGyver's actually realizes that what she's doing is bad and turns on Khan. And gets Captain Kirk out of trouble, which is he's being basically smothered to death in decompression. And Khan wants to just have all the officers kowtow to him. And think about it. 72 people have taken over a ship of 430. Or actually 73
people. Yeah, but I mean, they are... Listen, I've never... As I said, I've not seen TOS before. This is my first time, despite being a big Wrath of Khan fan, my first time watching Space Seed. But I'm a big DS9 fan, and they had a great 2 episodes of DS9 featuring these 3 maladjusted augments that Julian Bashir, an augment himself, has to take care of. It was such an amazing thing where these 3 very immature, hapless, guileless people are obviously super smart and super adept physically. And it's like, yeah, no, they could. If you let an augment out on the stock market, they'd be a billionaire in one day.
Well, that's
72 super smart, super strong people could definitely take over a Constitution class ship, guaranteed.
Well, I did like when Khan breaks out of his room, which has a guard on it. He basically forces open the pressure door, and then he knocks his security guard 10 feet into the air. Love that. That's actually pretty funny.
That's why I'm just again, maybe this is the bad writing or the writing where it shows. I hate that this entire episode has been a subtle, a subtle balance of wills, and then, oh, well, luckily our captain had a pipe on hand and was able to just beat him into submission.
Well,
it's fine.
Was it Khan says he's 5 times his strength or 3 times his strength?
Yeah.
That's
5 times.
5 times. That's pretty, pretty wild. But at least Kirk is able to stop the self-destruct system on the Enterprise. Basically, Khan's doing the scorched Earth idea of if I can't have the ship, no one can, and we'll all die. That is just
reminds me
done.
of something else.
Oh,
the end of Wrath of Khan.
That's quite true.
No, you can't get away.
Yep.
From hell's heart, I stab at thee.
Well, they keep coming back to this character. I got to tell you, the newer Treks also deal with eugenics in a very poor way. In this episode, it's sort of established that the eugenics only rule against eugenic manipulation or genetic manipulation only applies to humans. Somehow, in the new Star Treks, and I'm talking about Discovery and Strange New World, it's every race can't do genetic manipulation. That
doesn't make any sense.
It doesn't make any sense, and it makes the stories weak. They also have a Khan relative on the Enterprise in Strange New World, even though Spock doesn't know, who's never heard of this guy before. Again, that's a severe weakness. They also make Khan from Canada. And they also stop World War III and the eugenics war in Strange New World. They changed the entire story and timeline to the point where it makes absolutely no sense, and it doesn't even connect to this story. Well, they look totally different anyway, and the stories are different, and the characters are different, and there is no allegory. But other than that, they're exactly the same. Yes, that's called sarcasm.
I'm going to be honest with you. I've seen a couple of episodes of Strange New Worlds. I don't know why. I kind of dig Khan's great-great-granddaughter. And listen, it would make sense. Like, why would this handsome 50-year-old man who was ruler of 40% of Asia, why would he not have had children like Genghis Khan? Like, he'd probably have a bunch of descendants, and because he's genetically superior, they would be too, right?
Sure. Would you name your child Joe Hitler or Benito Mussolini? No, I don't think you would do that. It didn't make sense. It had some sort of implication in the story, too, and they even mentioned it, and it pretty much lessens Space Seed and eventually Star Trek, too, which just only proves to me that the writers of New Trek don't know what the heck they're doing, and they don't understand Star Trek. That's what I really think it is. Not that this is like, astrophysics, but the writing in these shows, including this one and the movies and everything up and through Enterprise, is superior. It is superior than any of the New Treks. There's less crying, too.
Listen. Yes, much. We have to wrap this up, I imagine.
Oh, yes.
So I want to kind of squeeze in the stuff that I'm really the most interested in, that I've been sitting on from the very beginning of this.
Because I have
Captain.
Something interesting at the end that you actually never hear, but it's very important. But go ahead.
Oh, I can't wait. Cut to 1982. Star Trek: The Motion Picture was a bit of a failure financially. They're going to make another one, but they're slashing the budget. Why, of all the villains, does Nicholas Meyer go with Khan? Now, he's good. Ricardo Montalban is somehow at once playing it serious as a heart attack, but also chewing scenery. It's good, but, why not Squire of Gothos? Why not any number of different, why not Charlie X? Why not any number of different callbacks? Why in this series of 100 episodes, vastly different with lots of different villains that I've enjoyed so far, why Khan?
That's something we'll have to get to when we cover it in our Star Trek II coverage eventually, Mike. But I will tell you that Nicholas Meyer did watch all of the episodes, and he came up with this one because it had the biggest cliffhanger out of all 3 seasons, or actually the most undetermined ending over here. Charlie X ends. Squire of Gothos kind of ends. So
That's
look
true.
at it that way. This one doesn't. What do we know what happens here? We've marooned these people, and Kirk even surmises, and this is leading into what I was just alluding to before. He surmises, I wonder what this place will be like in 100 years. And Spock even points out, like, I wonder what will grow out of the seed that we've planted. And the line they cut from Kirk was he hopes that the crop they plant doesn't spring out and slit our throats. Well, we find out that later, 15 years actually, that's what actually happens. So
I will say that it was a really stupid idea.
Yeah.
To give superpowered Hitler and his 72 superpower Hitler friends a planet, even if it didn't turn into a nightmare. I mean, they're going to have nuclear weapons in 10 years, warp drive in 20. It was going to rival the Federation if there had not been if the sun had not exploded.
Well, and that's the other thing is like, why didn't they like follow up with these people? They and by the way, there's 79 episodes, so just to make it clear, but or 78 according to our count with the menagerie.
You got to put in the South Park clip, please.
Okay.
The menagerie was the two-parter that counts as one episode.
But they never follow up with Khan. You would probably be bitter too, and I'm going to again refer to that IDW comic. It's really worth reading. Ruling in Hell with Khan. Ruling in Hell with Khan, a new children's storybook. But
yeah,
there you go. I do love that the sound in this is good, the music is good, the tension is good. It doesn't let up. It's not like I'm saying you're on the edge of your seat and wondering what's going to happen next. But the acting and the dialogue is so good and so well put together. You do feel the tension between the characters. They're worried now. We've just kind of taken the genie out of the bottle. What's going to happen next? It's pretty scary.
Yeah.
It's kind of having we released the authoritarian genies out of the bottle, and here they come. What are we going to do? But anyway.
Yeah, convenient writing that they were just like, we'll just give them a planet. Goodbye.
Yep. Well, after Kirk beats the crap out of them, they have. I still like the fact that they have that masthead, if you will, for the court scene where they have the bell ringing and they exile him, basically in their citing to Milton, which is better to rule in hell than serve in heaven. They're kicking Khan to this planet. And they say to MacGyvers, you could either come to General Court-Martial or you can hang with him. Gee, tough choice. But, go with the man I'm very attracted to and appears to love me, or go with you guys and go to jail. What would you do, Mike?
Yeah. I mean, listen, it didn't turn out well before because she ended up getting eaten by a space slug going into her ear.
Yeah, well, that's we don't know that yet at this point. We're jumping ahead to Star Trek 2 for most of it. I do want to point out just a couple of odds and ends. This cost $197,000. $197,262. They went over budget again. Not the actual budget for this was $185,000. A lot of this was because of, believe it or not, special effects of the Botany Bay. Even though Matt Jeffries, they're kind of bobbing along. But $197,000 is $1,902,809.10.
Well, and because you know what? Every time they have to do an exterior shot, they have to build a new model. They've got to do the multiple exposures. Probably takes a whole day.
Mm-hmm.
Takes some After Effects. Yeah, no, it makes sense.
Then the other thing that's weird is NBC's standards and practices didn't like their skimpy outfits when they were like getting like their compression outfits and the fact that the actors and actresses were bending all over the place on the Botany Bay to try and wake up. Standards and practices said, hey, that could make people upset. Take it out. And showing a rare set of strength in this area, Star Trek people said, no, we're not taking it out. It's pretty ballsy to say, stand up to NBC overlords.
Quite.
Yeah, well, because the NBC provides half the money. You don't want to, bite the hand that feeds you. I'll tell you that much. But I think that's pretty much about it. So they leave. They abandon them on SETI Alpha 5, although we know it's the SETI star system. That's what we know at this point.
Mm-hmm.
And the Enterprise goes merrily along its way. not necessarily wiser, but slightly more worried. And I think even Kirk has a worried look on his face. That's actually, like, geez, did I do the right thing, or did we do the right thing? So that pretty much is about it. Anything else under the questions on this, or you want to cover?
No, I will just say everyone always talks about the little goof that I referenced earlier, that Chekhov wasn't in season 1, except that, you know what? 493 people, he definitely could have been there. And Khan never forgets a face.
Well, actually,
so if he saw him once for a second, he was going to remember him.
There's a Walter Koenig said the reason why Khan remembered him is it was taco night on the Enterprise, and he had to run to the bathroom. But since there's only one bathroom on the official blueprints of the Enterprise, seriously, there's actually only one bathroom on the Enterprise. As a joke, Khan had to run to the John. He goes, I'll never forget a face, because Chekhov was blocking the bathroom the entire time. Ha, ha, ha. So that's...
Great job, Walter. Wow. Comedic genius.
Yeah, but in another comic, I think there's another one where at this time Walter was in engineering. So that's why you didn't see Chekhov on the bridge. So they kind of explain it that way. Here's another interesting thing. At dinner, they're serving blue liquid. Looks vaguely like Romulan ale. As you know, Kirk, not being next to Starfleet, always seems to have a supply of Romulan ale, probably by his pusher, Dr. McCoy. But,
yeah. Sip of the true.
Sip of the true. Can't say no to, that stuff in that Saurian brandy bottle, but this one was blue. But that's all the things that I pretty much have on this one. I guess anything else you want to rate on this?
No, I'm ready for my rating if you are.
Sure.
May I go?
Yes, go ahead first. What do you give this on our very scientific 1 to 10 scale, Mike?
Gonna say acted very, very, very well by everyone around. I love the tete-a-tete, the subtlety between Kirk and Khan. Ricardo Montalban hitting it out of the park. The woman going loosey-goosey over him, a little bit sexist, whatever. And the ending, a little bit of a dud and a little bit of relying on bad writing. I'm going to give this a 9 out of 10.
Wow. Look at that. And we are once again aligned. I am also going to give this a 9 out of 10. For very similar reasons. I like the character. I like the tension. I like the Botany Bay. I do like the fact that you don't really know who Khan is, and we find out a little bit more about the backstory and history of Earth, about what a wreck it is. And we see, that's all very interesting.
Good science fiction, which is what we're supposed to be watching.
Yes.
World building.
Imaginative. Characters, science fiction, stories, a lot less.
No crying.
No emotive crying. And let me tell you my truth. I got a paper cut. It reminded me of the time my dad did something and blah. Yeah, it's none of that. Yes, again, that's a Discovery dig. And it only has one episode less at the time of this recording of our podcast. But yeah, so we both give it 9s. And you know what's coming up next? We might as well talk about our next episode on Yelling at Gaseous Anomalies. We have just a tasty little taste of Armageddon. The taste of Armageddon, a taste of Armageddon is coming up. This slice of cheese and some fava beans. That's in our next episode of Yelling at Gaseous Anomalies. We ask that you like, share, and subscribe. And don't forget to come
please.
Yes, we love all of you, and thank all of you for joining us and coming on our adventure. Don't forget to check out our TeePublic Tea store, Tea Shop store, and I guess we'll see you on our next episode. Mike, anything else you want to add?
Live long and prosper, Captain. A pleasure as always. Thank you for showing me this amazing bit of old cinema. Well, TV. It holds up. So, pleasure to experience it with you.
It's a pleasure as always. Everyone, again, live long and prosper, and we'll see you out there.